Tonight's topic on hanging out with education is going to be Twitter. Every Wednesday afternoon or evening, we try to gather educators from all over the country to explore different technologies, different ways of interacting with students and other teachers and administration, everything at all different levels. Hi, Wendy. I see that we have Wendy available in the text chat. Thank you for joining us. One of the challenges with Twitter, I find, is a lot of people don't understand, well, what is this Twitter thing? Everybody knows that there's a limit on how much text you can type in, which is true, but they're not really sure, so what are people using Twitter for? If you are viewing this and can type in some text thoughts as to what your thoughts of Twitter and what it's used for, it would be great to hear from you before I share some of the perspectives I've been reading about and my own personal belief. I'm hearing you could not get the link for the mic and the camera. Wendy, I'm going to drop that link again in the event chat. And if you click on that link, you should be able to join. I'm going to drop that right now. Okay, that should be there now, I hope. Many people have asked me, why is there a 140 character limit in a communication tool? And it's pretty interesting. When people designed Twitter, they were really expecting this to be a quick, easy way to report on things with any device that you have. That includes, mostly at the time, text messaging with phones. Not seeing the link. Okay. Let me try it this way. One second. We're having difficulty with people getting the link. I'm trying to think of, oh, I know what I may be able to do. Let me do showcase and see if that shares. Says this feature is disabled, so they took showcase out. Showcase is a Google Hangout ability that would allow me to share video links, or hyperlinks rather. Instead, what I will do is I will share my web page so you can see where I'm at. I'm at the Hanging with Education event page. And if you need this link to get to that page, you can type in 5squared.us and go to Hanging with Education. And in our August 3rd session, there'll be an event link that brings you to this event page. You can click on this button to view, which I think some people may already be doing. But down in this chat area is where you would find the links to the different events. Hopefully that helps you find that. I'm going to stop the sharing right now. So back to the 140 character limit issue. They found out that most text messages through all the different carriers would allow only 140 characters without it sending multiple text messages. So they really designed the service to be used as a text messaging tool. This is back in the days with the flip phones, where people were basically taking their tricorders and double tapping a key multiple times to get the different characters. So let's talk about some uses of Twitter. I'm going to share my screen so we can jump over to see the screen of Twitter at the same time as I talk about it. going to bring you to my Twitter page, and you'll notice immediately there's stuff all over the screen. This could be a little disconcerting for people who have not been to Twitter before. And I want to highlight some areas that will help you navigate a little bit. This center feed here is where all your posts come in from the people you have subscribed to. Twitter is a device that allows you to subscribe and follow different individuals. So every time they post, for instance, right here, you'll see this @ sign, @Google. If you were to follow @Google, every time they post, you'll see that post in your feed here. So you'll see I have a bunch of different feeds, and some of these are just silly. You know, I follow The Onion because I love their humor. So I like to have that in there. I'm a big football fan, so I have enjoyed following Ross Tucker because I like his point of view, and a few other sports reporters. You'll notice that at the top it says view 11 new tweets. Since I've had this open, there's been 11 new tweets, and if I click on them, I can see Vicky Davis has had a bunch of posts, and then Mike Muir's had a post. So all of these people are posting in real time, and that keeps getting added to my wall, very much like Facebook does. On the right-hand side, they have suggestions for who you may be interested in following based on who you are already following. And on the left-hand side, you'll notice your profile on top, complete with how many different tweets. A tweet is a post. So I've tweeted 42 times. I have 43 people following me, and I am following 45 people, and 43 people are following me. I used to post on this a bunch, and I had some questions about why are so many people using Twitter at the time, and it was novel at the time. And people were posting things like, hi, going out to eat, or very personal things that I really didn't care about. So I find it lost interest in it for a while. In Facebook, you'll know that they have news, popular news and things going on. These trends are the equivalent in Twitter. There's different things that you can look at to see what is getting a lot of attention out there in Twitter. Some of them may have this number symbol in front of them. That number symbol is a hashtag, and think of that as a shortcut to get to information. So if someone posts something, they can put that hashtag on there, and someone can just do that hashtag and find all the information other people have been posting about that. For instance, hashtag staples for students. If I click on that, I can see that this is a series. You can see the hashtag up top, and we can see what are the top posts. We can go through the posts, and we can see different things that people have either posted or copied from someone else. When you copy from someone else, they call that retweeting. So you can see here, Vicky Davis retweeted this, and we can read it. It's simply 140 characters, and you'll see people using hashtags all the time as a shortcut to get to threads of information that are organized. I'm going to hop over to the questions here real quick just to see if there's been any questions. Okay. Pull this up. Okay, Wendy, you're not seeing the link. Let me try this, Wendy. I am going to I don't know if you're familiar with Google Hangouts, Wendy, but I have just added you to a circle, and I'm going to try to send you that link in a Hangout. To do that, I have to send you an invitation, and you have to accept it. By that way, I could probably offer you a direct link to the presentation. So let's go back to the navigation at the top is very useful, because if you ever get into a thread that you're following and you want to get back to your main page, the home page here in the top left will bring you back there. And you'll notice I didn't highlight it before I clicked it, but there was a little blue dot that was next to my home page. That simply means that there has been more tweets that have added to my page already. I'm going to click on my profile for a second so you can see some of the different settings and what this looks like. This is very similar to a Facebook page where you're looking at your own wall on a Facebook page. And again, I can see my tweets. And if you scroll down through these are reminders about the hanging out with education. And I even made a hashtag for it. So hashtag hang with education. So if you ever go on Twitter and type in hashtag hang with education, you'll see posts about these Google Hangouts and any news or questions or any kind of forms I might share. And you can also see some of the things I might have done very early on. And again, these were posts back in 2011. So you can see I have not used it recently because I found other tools that I personally found interesting or useful for some of the things I was doing. Recently, I have jumped back into Twitter because there was interest in people exploring that tonight. So I have found some great uses for it recently. Okay, didn't come up in emails either, first trying Hangouts. All right, Wendy. Let me see if I have you there. One moment. I don't have you on my address. I'm sorry about the linking, Wendy. If you can hang around after this just for a few minutes, I can try to help set you up and see if we can troubleshoot why you're not seeing the links on the event page. So let's go back to the profile. If I click on following, this is something that I can go to any of my followers and see what are they posting. For instance, I mentioned I follow Ross Tucker. When I click on his name, I will be brought to his page. I can see that he has 18.4 thousand tweets, and I can see all the different things he's posted. But I can also see who is he following. So I can follow this thread to get connected to a number of people based on my interests. So these are people he may be following at this time, and they may have certain information. In this case, it's relevant to football news. For educators, if we had a series of educators linking together, it'd be really nice to be able to quickly and easily connect with other educators. So when I look at my following list, it's really important that when you fill out your profile, it gives some information as to who are you, why would people want to follow you, what kind of information do you have to share with the world. So over here, distance education, that's pretty self-explanatory, but they do highlight down here what they're trying to do, and that may help you decide, do I want to follow them? Do I want to at least check out their channel and see what's going on? I'm going to jump over again. Thank you, Wendy, for your patience on that. Another thing you might notice on the right-hand side of my profile page is the lists. This gets a little tricky, and this was not intuitive, but you can make a number of lists. When I go back to my wall, I'm going to look at my tweets. And I look at my tweets, I can see that I have kind of a hodgepodge, a little bit about the hanging with education, a little bit over here where there was actually people hacking my account in 2012. That's kind of when I stopped because there was a lot of issues at the time with security. Those have since, I think, been addressed a lot. And then before that, back in 2011, I was posting different things about tech integration with teachers, which was kind of nice. But I want to set up something for my students, for instance. So I created a list. I want my students to be able to critically analyze information that's available on the internet So I made this list that pulls information from Twitter feeds from news places all over. So I create this one called News from All Over, and if I click on that, you'll see what that looks like. So I have news from the BBC. Over here, you'll see I have the China news, XH News out of China. I've got the Guardian, another British. I've got more BBC, Guardian. So we can see mostly here it's been China and Britain. Oh, here's CBC, so we got Canadian news jumping in. But these are all tweets from different news agencies around the world. And of course, based on the time of day, there might be news agencies that are pretty much in a lull because it's the middle of the night for them this time of year, this time of day rather. But up top, you can see there are 7 members. Those members are the different agencies that I have added in here. And you can see them listed here by clicking on members. You can see all the different places I'm pulling news from. So Israel, Japan, Al Jazeera. And I just wanted my students to get a worldly perspective and say, what do you see for trends? How are some of the reports similar and different? And they start looking, they love this, they start looking for news articles that are similar. And they start saying, wow, these guys are saying this, but these guys are saying something completely different. And they start having discussions about that. So it's really good to get a perspective on the truth. What is the truth? What is people's opinion? And how do we draw the fine line to make decisions for ourselves about things? So this was an example of a list. You'll notice none of these posts from the BBC. If I go back to home, none of these are going to appear on my home tweets. So I go back here and we just see Vicki Davis has posted a bunch. She currently, right now at this hour, is hosting an event and she's posting a bunch of tweets. That's why she's got a bunch on there right now. But none of these are the news articles. I did that all in a list. So the list allows me to really set up a specific thread, if you will, of tweets. I also have 2 new tweets that have come in. Again, Vicki Davis has retweeted some stuff. So she's going through and reporting on a few resources she's found available. Which gets us back to the original thought I had of what is this good for? A lot of self-promotion, it turned out, when it first started. People were saying, I am awesome at this. Come look at me because I've got important things. And then it started morphing a little bit to people reporting out what was going on in their corner of the world. Or maybe they had connections and they were sharing some information. It became a sort of private reporting tool. And I'll look at some of the people I'm following. I mentioned Ross Tucker with the NFL. He shares a lot of NFL news. Obviously from Google, I'm getting information from the Google sources as to what's going on. Looking at some of the others. Over here, for those of you who get into gaming, Marcus Persson, he's also known as Notch. He's one of the creators of Minecraft. He's the person that primarily formed Minecraft. So I was following him because he had lots of information about gaming. And that was really nice to hear. You'll see some names here if you're familiar in the state of Maine. These are some teachers that have been involved an awful lot with technology integration through the years. And I was following them to get some information and see what kind of things they post. You know, Sean Kimball and Sarah Sutter, they are big names in the area who've constantly been twittering a lot of educational resources, as well as Mike Muir. If you've viewed any of the previous Wednesday sessions, Digo, we briefly explored as an incredible tool for not only bookmarking resources, but also for taking notes online. So again, these people are sharing their thoughts, sharing their experiences, and sometimes you'll follow them and say, well, this person is not very interesting. And you can toggle that following setting on and off. So it's not like you're stuck with somebody once you start following them. You don't have to have them on there. It's kind of like defriending somebody in Facebook. So let's look at how do you make a list. why don't we try an experiment where we're going to make a list of homework assignments for our students. This was a little, again, not very intuitive, because when you look through the choices up here for your menu options, you have home, which brings you back to your main Twitter feed. You have moments, which are kind of like, here are some things that have been popular today, or I can choose by topic. So it's kind of like tweet by category. Today is the popular ones. If I wanted to do stuff on Rio, because that's particularly hot, I can click on Rio. And I'm getting different tweets from people who are either at Rio or tweeting about Rio. One thing you'll notice as well as I scroll through this list, I mentioned it's 140 text characters, but notice that the current trend today, with video cameras and phones being so prolific, that you're getting images and videos, which often tell you much more than the 140 characters. So the addition of video and images has really propelled Twitter in terms of capacity of telling a story. You could put a simple few sentences and then put a link to a video, and someone can watch something. It could be any length of video on here, because it's just a link to the video that's stored probably in YouTube or someplace else. So I do have a few categories up here I can search through under moments. Under notifications, these are things like people actually sending me a message, who has recently added me, so they can follow me, who have I added. So it's really just notifying me of what things have happened. And then through Twitter, you can talk privately with individuals. So maybe somebody wants to send me a direct message and they don't have my email address. This is one of those situations where right now I wanted to try to get a link to somebody and I wasn't able to because I didn't have their email address. If they were a Twitter fan or follower, I could easily private message them that link, or I could just tweet it out. So we're back to the problem of how do I get this list thing started. Over on your profile picture, if you click on that, there are a few things that you want to note. Primarily for our point right now is list. And under list, it allows you to create a list. So over here, I can click on create a new list. And we mentioned we're going to make a list for homework. Homework for class with Ed. And the description, I'm just going to put down tweets for my students. I would put a little bit more, but even that has a character limit. And I choose whether I want this public or private. Now, if I choose it private, I'm going to be the only one that sees that list. And I'm going to set it private for right now. I can always come back and toggle that to public when I'm ready. There are a lot of teachers who are concerned about going live and looking silly while they're trying to play with things. If you are worried about that, click on the private, and that way you can mess around with the list or you can do things that you want. And then when it looks the way you like it, then you can share it publicly so your students can find it. So I'll save that list. And Wendy, I see you pressing the H a bunch. Are you trying to share a question? So I've shared that list, and this is an interface thing that I found a little frustrating. I click on Save List, and nothing happens. It still stays here. It actually created a list behind me. Let me refresh that screen. Oh, evidently it did not create that list. Let's try that again. Work for Ed. I'm going to set that as private. Save the list. Okay, so now I have this list set up. You'll notice there are no members, no subscribers. And I'd have to set up, okay, well, how do I want to put on here? What are the tweets? So I'd have to set up who do I want to follow. This is where I might want to make, I have an @Ogier feed, which is me. I may want to make another Twitter feed simply for my classroom. So I might say @Ogier's class. And that would be a completely different Twitter account, which I would follow for this list and put it here. Again, you could just make a whole nother feed and have people follow it there. So if I hit search, I can do advanced searches, and I can search through things that other people are posting. Now, obviously, doing things where they are homework assignments, I'm not going to post them here. I mean, I'm not going to sit there and add somebody else's account unless it's something I'm doing myself. So when I go back to home and I click on my lists, I'm going to go back to my profile page, and I go to lists and I see 2 lists. I have homework for Ed, and there are no members. Now I do have some, oh, it looks like Wendy did get in. So I'm going to get that address again. Let's see if I can share that. Wendy, there you go. Let's see if that link works for you. Okay. And where were we? Oh, we were looking at that list for the homework. When I look at that tweets for the homework again, it sets me back up here. So I have to make that list up. If I go to edit, again, I can change it to public or not. But I'm not getting the place where I can actually type into it. So that's something where I'm going to have to look into how we would set up that separate thread. I know we could do it with another Twitter feed, but I'd rather not at this point. So Wendy's still working on trying to get in there. Okay. Let's go back in and explore some other uses. If anybody has gone to the event page that was advertised in the links forum or on my page hanging with education, I shared a link of suggested uses. I don't know how long ago this was published, but I wanted to use this document as and here's the document right now. I wanted to use this document as kind of a stepping off point of how would people view some of these uses through Twitter compared to other tools that might be available today. Wendy, I have an M in your chat. We talked about provide the class with a running news feed. I have not configured it yet so that I have a separate feed for homework assignments, but that's something that I'm interested in doing, and I'd have to explore that more. I'm sure those of you with Twitter experience can drop me some hints, advice, or suggestions on that. Wendy, it looks like when you're trying to chat, your keyboard might be stuck. So I'm typing instructions here. And I'll put down here is the link. You should just have to click on that link, and that should join the event. So some other things. Use Twitter in the classroom to create a career list. Again, you're making a list of things. But once I've done a career inventory with my adult ed learners, I can take that list of occupations and I can create a list with other tweets that are about that particular topic. So if I go back in and I want to create a new list, I'll go to my page and I will click on lists. This is another way you can make a new list. Before I went through my profile, by clicking on my face, I eventually went to lists that way, and I can create a new list here. It's very similar, but I'm going to make a career career list, and I'm going to make that private again. So some things that my students may be interested in. I know a lot of my students are interested in getting their CNA. So down here, I can look through the list and I see, ooh, CNAs, that looks like in DC. So maybe I just want to check out that information. Oh, CNA.org. I don't know if that's the same one. Let me just double check and see what they have for tweets. So again, I'm just kind of browsing through to see what they do. Oh, I hear voice.
I don't know if you hear me, do you?
We do. We hear you. Congratulations on your persistence. Thank you for joining.
This was a pain.
Well, I'm glad you persisted. And you share frustration. Most people have the first time they set up, but once they're set up, it's pretty easy the second time. So I can read over here about CNA, and obviously this is not the CNA I was hoping to get. So I'm going to go back to my list and see if I can add in a different CNA. While I'm doing that, do you have any questions or thoughts to share with everybody, Wendy?
What I was trying to type in before when my keyboard kept getting stuck was how your students get access to that list that you made of the news events.
Oh, great question. Let me go back to my home, and I'll go back to my list. That was my news from all over.
Right.
When they type in this topic on their own threads, they can add, they can immediately add this to their own list if they wanted to, or they could subscribe to this. And if I go to subscribers, I can actually find users and add them. And I think this is probably the easiest way with students I would do this, because I would have their Twitter accounts if they shared that with me, and I would put their names in here. When I find them, I would add them to the subscriber list. I wonder if people just search news from all over. Let's try this. Up in the search Twitter. And I do that search. I'm probably going to get a number of people who've done something similar.
Ah.
So I can see a bunch of people. Now, I can see this is from Sir L. Musty, news from BFD. So I can see these are all from different people. So what I may want to do is news from all over, and I might want to put @Ogier, which is my Twitter handle. Let's see if that pulls up just mine. And it says no results. And a lot of that might be just because I just made that list. I'm not sure. But I would probably do the private subscription thing. That way, anytime there's an update on that list, my students are automatically getting that.
Okay.
And again, I am not an expert at Twitter, so I'm sure there's some people out there who are really good at Twitter going, oh my gosh, you're crazy. I need to get online and fix this guy up. Please do. I was really hoping that we'd have some Twitter experts out in the field joining us tonight, and they may be out there lurking. But this may encourage them to join us again on another Wednesday night where they can share some of those specific questions where we really want to have students doing some specific things.
I just found it was very difficult for my students even to make a Twitter account. Never mind do anything with it.
Now, what kind of difficulties did you encounter? I'm going to log out and go to Twitter and make a brand new account.
Well, they had trouble following the directions.
Ah.
Not all of them had smartphones. They mistyped. I mean, you know, all the things that students do, they did.
Yeah.
You know, it would take at least a class time. Well, I didn't pursue it after the first time because it took a whole class just to not even get everybody set up with an account.
I wonder I'm sure there has to be a YouTube video on this. I'm very into YouTube videos for instruction. How to start a Twitter account.
Ah,
So I always try to find how-to videos, and I
yeah.
might review them. I like to look at how many years ago, because if we do this one from 7 years ago,
Yeah.
it may be old news. They've changed the interface, different menus, all kinds of things.
Right.
So I like to find things within the last year. And there's a filter on the YouTube search that lets you search. Now, I'd like to check in this last month just to see if there's anything out there. 2 weeks ago. Okay, how to create your account step by step. You know, that seems like a good one I'd check at. It's only 11 minutes. I do like to get things that aren't too long because, you know, attention spans wane with some of the techie stuff with some people.
Mhm.
And then what I would do is I'd share this with my learners and say, please try to do this. And then next class, if you had any issues, I can try to help you through it. But that gets rid of a lot of the wait time you mentioned of trying to get everybody hooked up. The other thing is if your site has limited bandwidth and everybody's trying to get on an account at the same time, there's issues on the Twitter end where they're now receiving how many requests from your location, especially if there's errors. They're going to say, oh, wait, someone's trying to spam our site. And they may just shut that all the IP addresses from your site down for a while, saying, no, we think we're being attacked from that site. And that adds a few things extra. Go ahead.
Covered with email. When I was teaching computers, I just set up everybody's account myself.
That is helpful, yeah.
I couldn't deal with the length of time it took to get them going.
Yeah, I like that idea. That's a wonderful idea.
But I want to do that on Twitter.
You could do that on Twitter. You might need their email addresses so you can link the Twitter account to their email.
Yeah.
What I was going to do is look for career lists. I'm wondering if I can go back in, and I want to go back to my list, and I'm going to look at my career list. And what I'd like to do is, like I mentioned, CNA. Maybe if I've typed it all out instead of using the abbreviation. Certified nurse's aide. Well, there's one. I don't know if it's something worth following. Well, I have no tweets yet, but 31 followers. Go figure that out. I'm not really sure. But again, they joined back in 2012. There was like a Twitter main rush where everybody started getting Twitter accounts back in 2011 and 2012, and then it kind of trended down a little bit for many of the people just checking things out, and then it's come back and forth a few times. So let me go back. So I'm finding it difficult right now to find career-oriented career lists for a career that, at least in the state of Maine, is in very high demand. And I think as the baby boomers get older, you know, there's going to be a lot of people wanting CNA work.
Try putting an E on the end of aid.
Oh, okay. Well, this is for people. Okay. Nurses or nursing? Certified nurses. Nursing aid. See if that does it. Okay. Certified nursing aides, Manhattan Institute. So this is a training institute for certified nurses aide. This is an individual who's a certified nurses aide. And this is an agency. I'm sorry, what was that?
You're in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, putting the E on the end definitely helped. So that does get us a little closer. But this might be interesting for our learners to look at. And as they go through their career studies, maybe they want to make a feed simply about their process of becoming a nurse's aide. And as we can see through our very short search right now, There's not a whole lot of people tweeting about that experience. Well, how cool would it be if one of our learners is tweeting about the experience of getting into nurse's aid, going through the processes, the schooling, maybe when they start getting some of the practice and work, what are some of their experiences? They'd have some people who are going through it as well who can share experiences with them, which would be very rich. Now I'm wondering, what about education? This hanging out with education is all about connecting teachers. Let's take a look at what lists are out there for teachers or educators. I'm going to create a new list. You know what? Instead of doing this, I'm going to do it as a hashtag. I'm going to go back to home. And hashtag is it's not really a list, but it's posts that are about something. So I'm going to come up here and search, and I'm going to put hashtag education. And I'm going to put the I in there. And this is anything people have posted, and they put the hashtag inside there. So somewhere in their post, they put hashtag education. World's top 10 most prestigious universities. World Economic Forum. Oh, that's interesting. It's an interesting graphic I might want to print out and take a look at. So the hashtags is probably a quicker way to find information than the lists, depending on what you're trying to search for. Now I wonder if we did a hashtag CNA, what shows up. Future nurse, CNA. Okay, so this might be a better way for people to start connecting with others who are doing their profession. CNA training grads right here. Now you'll notice down on the bottom, there are a number of icons here. So you can actually reply to someone's tweet with another tweet, and you can have a conversation just like you would reply in Facebook. The other thing you can do is retweet. That's very similar to Facebook share. It's where they take the same address and tweet and put it on your Twitter feed so other people can see. And of course you have the like, which Facebook has as well. And the other options, I can send a direct message to whoever tweeted this. I can also send the link someplace. I could mute this person, so I do not want to see or hear from this person, or I could just completely block them or report inappropriate content. So there's a lot of options on each tweet as to how I can respond. You'll notice that on this video, it's automatically playing as I scroll over this. And I suspect in the settings you can change that. Like if you're on a mobile device, you probably don't want the video clogging up your minutes on your device. So you may want to change that in some of your settings. And again, going through your profile and going to settings, you'll find that there are a number. This is daunting. No two ways about it. When you look at all of these categories over here, these are all ways you can customize your Twitter experience. And each one of these things may have a page or two of settings. So that's something you might want to spend some time on with students, but you probably want to only hit a few of these. And one of the things that's interesting as a teacher you may want to play around with is something called the widget. And if I create a new one, I can create a widget that shows up on my wall. Let's say a list widget. And I'd have to say, well, what do I want to embed? Or I can choose some other options below. You've seen these Twitter buttons all over the place. If I have a classroom web page and I want people to be able to follow my Twitter feed, I can create a button that brings them right to my Twitter feed. I could also embed something in my timeline, or I can embed something within a tweet, or I can make a grid of different tweets. going to jump real quickly over to my Hanging with Education, and you can see right here it says follow at Ogier. So anybody coming to this site who doesn't want to have to come back to this website all the time to get updates about what sessions are coming up, they can simply click on this. It'll load up with my profile and everything else, and people can just, I'm already following myself, obviously, but they can click on follow or subscribe, and they can get my tweets every time I post out. But I created that button by clicking on Twitter buttons and choosing a follow button. I could also choose a share button if I had some news, like say on Facebook, and I wanted to make sure people could share that on their Twitter feed to help spread things around across different platforms. I can create a share button or a mention button if I'd like to mention something somebody else has done. The hashtag button is to, again, follow a topic. It's like a quick bookmark lookup within Twitter. So this is just a way to quickly and easily make buttons, because I've had a lot of educators ask me, how do you get that stupid little Twitter button? And this is the way you'd go about doing that. Again, I went through the widgets. I'm going to back up again. I clicked on my profile. I went to settings, and from settings, I went down to widgets, and that's how you can start getting some Twitter buttons to add to other activities. Any thoughts or questions, Wendy, at this point?
No, really.
Okay.
You know, partly as this was about Twitter, and partly it was finding out about Google Hangouts.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad you persisted with the Google Hangout. What are your thoughts on using Twitter in adult education?
Well, as I say, I just had trouble. I'm not in the classroom anymore. I teach distance learning and a lot of professional development. And I just find that anything that takes a lot of steps of direction is very difficult to use with adult learners. Very difficult. Very
true. Very true. There are many barriers to getting into some of these things. And once they're accomplished, once you're set up, it's fine. Like you said, once you set up the accounts ahead of time, you probably have an easier time with students. Is that accurate?
Definitely.
Yeah. So it's almost like, all right, just let me set up the accounts for them so they can have an easier flow. But I almost think as well, we take away a little bit of the experience of people trying to sign up for something. Let's say they want to get onto Amazon because they heard they can go shopping. Well, signing up for Amazon may have a few glitches in it as well, just like getting a Skype account or something else.
Yep. I was teaching pretty basic computers, so I figured the important thing was to get them on, and especially because I wanted to send them assignments by email. And I just couldn't justify the time to have them set up the accounts, because then, of course, they'd forget their username and their password.
Oh, passwords are brutal.
So I had a protocol for setting up new usernames, and everybody had the same password. I figured when they could figure out how to change it, they'd remember it. And until then, I didn't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
But I mean, especially like the idea of the Hangouts, although not one of my students would have persisted the way I did, not one. So if I'm going to use that with my distance students, which would be great because I never see them. I'm in Massachusetts, and I am one of 3 teachers for the whole state. So I never see my students. And a Hangout would be great, but they wouldn't be able to get in. And I looked at your tutorial, and it still didn't help. Of course, it didn't help that my keyboard was freezing, but it's frustrating because there's such wonderful technology out there, and there's so many barriers for our students.
Sure. I wonder, and part of this hanging out with education is an experiment to see if we can offer on a weekly basis hot topics that help people with those stumbling, like how do I get into Google Hangouts? We did our very first session on Google Hangouts, and I didn't record it because we had some people who were very nervous about the experience and didn't want to go on YouTube at the time. I'm wondering if now it might be a good time to go back to an introduction to Google Hangouts and record it this time, so people might be able to see some of the speed bumps that we encountered.
Well, I don't know what happened tonight. I mean, I have you, I got the pop-up in my Google, in my Gmail. I'm using a 1-year-old Surface that's got plenty of bandwidth, and I'm on a good network, and just all those HHHs were because as soon as I typed, I was going to ask how, and as soon as I typed the H, it was entered. So I could only type one letter at a time.
Could I ask which browser you were using? Because sometimes what browser you use really matters.
Well, I intended to use Chrome, but I think maybe I clicked on Firefox by mistake.
And that's what I suspect happened. If you use Firefox, Internet Explorer, or Safari, all three of those browsers, which are quite popular, don't auto-update by default. You have to go in and change some settings to auto-update. And especially if you're in a school system or using school computers, those auto-updates are usually turned off for security reasons.
Yeah.
Whereas Chrome seems to have an auto-update that is working for a lot of people without any fuss. So that's, again, where Chrome might be a better option. But if you encounter stuff like that online, the biggest question is, what browser are you using, and is it updated? And if it's not, that's the way to go.
No, mine are all auto-updated.
Okay, good.
My house is fully networked and updated and secure and all of that. But I think I clicked on the wrong button. Also, I had installed the add-in in my desktop, but I'm using my laptop right now, and I had not installed the add-in. So I think all of that was part of the problem.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you for sharing that insight, because there are other people who have tried to join some Hangouts, and they had some difficulties the very first time they did that. So it'd be really interesting to create a collaborative document to help people get into Google Hangouts. I'm getting a brand new webcam this week, and one of my goals with that new webcam is to record some sessions to do walkthroughs for people.
Yeah.
So that people have a walkthrough they can follow step by step. And of course, I don't have every device and every machine, so I can't show it for all machines. But the hope is if they can see it through one format, it's going to be similar to the other.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to say I just don't think Google Hangouts are likely to be a good use for my students, because mostly I don't know what browser they're using, and they probably don't either. And if they're using Internet Explorer or Firefox, the idea of downloading another one, they probably wouldn't know how to do. I mean, I hate to sound so negative, but you know, I've been doing this distance learning for a long time, and our students just mostly don't have the computer expertise that they should, which is very disappointing.
Yeah, and you mentioned distance learning, which I think is a really great discussion. Maybe we should have that for another night, just the challenges of distance learning. Okay. If I was face-to-face, I can easily sit down side by side and walk someone through something.
Right.
But if you're trying to set them up remotely, you know, you can have a great tutorial, but you don't know what they're working with. You don't know what they're encountering for issues.
Exactly.
You know, when you were having difficulty, I had no way to connect with you and ask you, could you share your screen?
Right.
Now that you're hooked up on Google Hangout, I can have you share your screen, and I'd be able to see what you were doing.
Oh, how do you do that?
When you mouse over in Google Hangout in the top left-hand corner, you'll see a green button that says Screen Share.
Oh, cool.
And when you just click on Screen Share, you'll see three options. It'll say Entire Screen, Google Hangouts, or whatever web page or whatever else you have in the background. Because I'm the originator of this particular Hangout, I'm going to get everybody a little bit dizzy here for a second. I'm going to choose Entire Screen. I apologize for this. But you'll see that little rainbow effect where it just kind of goes infinite. Yeah. That's because I'm the author. of this particular Hangout. So just be aware of that. If you instigate something with students, or initiate rather, you're not going to be able to share your screen with your Hangout Live. You have to share your other parts of your screen.
Okay.
But there, again, maybe this is an indication that 3 or 4 weeks into this, it would be a good time to revisit a basic Google Hangout session where people can come in with questions, thoughts. Heck, maybe we can even collaborate on a how-to manual for educators and for students to get going on this a whole lot easier.
Well, that would be useful.
I know I've cruised around YouTube and tried to find things, and I found a bunch, but again, you never know what's going to work best for people.
Right.
So that's always a challenge.
Right.
Well, again,
I'm glad that you're doing these because I'm constantly looking for new ways to connect with my students or other educators. And my program has access to Adobe Connect, and that actually has turned out to be a wonderful.
good. That's good. And that's a fee-based service, so most people can't get that unless they pay the fees.
Well, but the students can use it without a fee.
Correct. Correct.
And they don't have to download anything, which is great.
Yeah, it is good. And that works right out of your browser, correct? There's a plugin that gets downloaded?
Yep.
Okay, that's what I thought. I do want to remind people that we do this every week, and everyone has input on what are some topics we could talk about. I have upcoming sessions. I do not have a topic scheduled for next week, so squeaky wheels can get the most grease here. If you go to 5squared.us, that's the number 5 squared.us, and that's all one word. That'll bring you to a site. Here's the welcome page. And you just click on that second link that says Hanging with Education. And on the Hanging for Education, you'll see a suggested topic. And you'll also see, well, you'll see how easy it is. You simply put down, what is your topic? Can I contact you if I have any questions? And just for data, I'd like to know, where are you coming in from? I know we always have some lurkers from all over the country. I'm just curious about, how far is this reaching? Who are we reaching? You'll also find archive sessions, and they're listed in reverse order. And I'll also include links to resources that were shared in each of the sessions. So that may be useful as well to share with staffs or anybody else interested in joining us.
So it's just 5squared.us?
Yep, if I just do 5squared.us
Great.
as it's typed in here.
Great.
And it's a redirect. It'll redirect you to a Google site that I created for my consulting, and over here on Hangout with Education. Super. And people can now hit the Twitter button, which wasn't there last week, but my very brief exploration into Twitter got that up and running. I'll have to be posting now on Twitter every week in addition to Facebook. Just for information, there is a program out there called TweetDeck. And those of you who are lazy like me, you may want to look into this if you do expect to use Twitter at all. What TweetDeck allows you to do is you can post something once, and it goes to your Facebook, it goes to your Twitter, it goes to all the different social medias you have without having to go to each and every single one of them. So over here, I can see that where are these posts from? Well, this is from Twitter. I don't have any messages set up. This is who's following me. So you can set up where your feeds are coming from, where your information is coming from. You can have multiple accounts all linked together in TweetDeck. And again, I had this all set up back in 2012. I have not fiddled with it since. And you can see activity here. It'll say that I had 4 posts, made some lists, some things like that. So again, a nice way, if you're going to use Twitter in your classroom, TweetDeck might be helpful for you because you can add in all your students' feeds all right into TweetDeck, and you can see all the different messages they're posting, which might be useful. Well, we're at that time, and I do want to respect everybody's time. Thank you very much, Wendy, for persisting.
Thanks, Ed.
I appreciate it. And hopefully we'll connect with everybody next week. I need some topics. Otherwise, I'm thinking we might do an introduction to Google Hangout again and try to get people more comfortable with that tool. Until then, I hope everybody has a great week, and thank you, everybody, for joining.
Bye.
Bye.